Hello everyone. I have a powerful story that I want to share with you today about what happened to America's lost treasures. But before I do so, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. All those things help us from going extinct, which is something that's near and dear to my heart, because there are some stories I want to tell. But more importantly, there are some stories that you guys have told me that you want to hear. And in order for us to keep this train moving forward, those things are important. So thank you for doing them. And now let's get into this story. This is one that was sent to me by a viewer. He said it was a story that he heard when he was younger from an older gentleman. Now, his name has been withheld to protect his privacy. And I'm gonna read this email to you because it's just so good. It was back in 1964 when my dad and I were traveling between Colorado and California to visit family. We stopped at a small cafe somewhere in Utah or Nevada. While we were eating, I must have been around 10 years old at the time. We were sitting across from two older gentlemen. They were well dressed and were obviously businessmen. One of them was in a wheelchair. They were talking loudly about their business deal they had just made. Apparently, they were in the process of buying a big piece of property where they were going to build a new manufacturing plant. The conversation turned to what they were going to do with the old building on the property. It was an old wooden structure probably built in the early 1900s. The man in the wheelchair suggested that they tear down the building because it would be too expensive to restore. The other man said, "No, we'll restore it. I want to see what's inside that old building." He said that the previous owner had died and left rumors that he had hidden money and other valuables in the building before he died. He wanted to see if these rumors were true. I was listening intently, thinking, wow, what a great adventure. I remember thinking that I would love to find some lost treasure. I asked my dad if we could go see the building, but he said it wouldn't be possible since we did untone the place, and it was probably on private property. We finished our lunch, paid our bill, and got in our car to continue our trip. As we drove past the site where the old building stood, I saw the old wooden structure. It wasn't very big, maybe 20 by 30 feet. It was maybe 100 yards off the road. I noticed that the side of the building where the door was looked like it had been burned pretty badly. Maybe lightning had hit it and burned it. I remember thinking how cool it would be to explore the building after hours and see what kind of treasures I could find. A few weeks later, we moved to Southern California. Several years passed and I forgot about the old building until one day when I was driving through Las Vegas on the freeway. I saw a sign for the Hoover Dam, and I wondered what it would be like to see the construction site where they were building the dam. I remembered driving by that old building in Utah and wondered if I could find it again. I began searching old maps of the area and finally found a map that showed the location of the building. I got directions to the site and decided to go exploring. I arrived at the site and was surprised to see that the old building was still standing. I walked around the outside of the building and noticed that the door on the side of the building was gone. I thought to myself, perfect. Now I can go in and look for some treasure. I opened the door and stepped inside. It was pitch black, so I couldn't see anything. Then I noticed a light switch, turned on the light, and started to explore. I walked around and looked in every corner and hole, but I didn't find any treasure. As I walked out of the building, I noticed that the windows on the back of the building were broken and someone had spray painted the walls with graffiti. I felt sad that someone had defaced the building. I walked back to my car and got in. As I drove away, I thought to myself, how cool would it be if someone was to restore this building and make it look nice again? A few days later, I picked up a newspaper and saw an article about a group of businessmen who bought an old building in Utah and were going to restore it. The picture in the article showed the front of the building, and it was the same building I had explored a few days earlier. I was so excited. Maybe they would find some treasure in the building. A week later, I picked up another newspaper and saw the same headline. It said that the building had burned to the ground. I was so disappointed. Maybe the building had burned before they had a chance to explore it. I kept getting newspapers, hoping to find out what had happened, but I never saw another article about the building. Years passed and I forgot about the incident until about 2 years ago. My wife and I were driving through Utah and I told her about the old building. She said that she would love to see it. So I pulled out my phone and did a search to see if I could find the location. I found the location and we decided to go check it out. We arrived at the site and couldn't believe what we saw. There were no signs of the building anywhere. There was a paved road leading up to the site where the building had been. The only evidence that the building had ever existed was a pile of dirt and rubble where the foundation had been. We were disappointed that we had arrived too late to see the building, but we were glad that we had the opportunity to explore our own piece of history. Wow, what a story. That was a really good one. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. I love it. And I also love stories like this, because you guys have told me that you enjoy them as well. So thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.